Welcome back, regular viewers, to Wednesday Night Sessions, and welcome to any first-time viewers to Wednesday Night Sessions. I'm your host, Mitch Nobis. We are here for KickstART Farmington, bringing you our regular literary readings online during the pandemic era. Coming back to you from the converted basement office. I often refer to this as the dorm office in our house. We have a real office with the fancy bookshelves and all the stuff you're supposed to have behind you on Zoom. But my kids are sleeping, so you can tell when these episodes are recorded at night. The nighttime episodes feature the half toy room, half office. Feels kind of like a dorm. I am excited tonight. Joining us is Amorak Huey, a poet from the west side of our great state. As regular viewers know, sometimes we like to feature Michigan writers. Sometimes we go abroad because we can during the pandemic, and we're online anyways. But tonight we do have a Michigan author with us. So Amorak, take it away.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Mitch. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be part of this program. Excited to read for a Michigan organization. I was born in Michigan, moved away for a long time, grew up in the South, and came back to Michigan as an adult, and I'm super happy to be here. I teach at Grand Valley State, like Mitch said, on the west side of the state. Before that, I was a journalist. I worked at the Grand Rapids Press, and I've been writing and living in Michigan for 20 years now. It's crazy. I'm super happy to be here, super happy to be writing about Michigan. And the first poem that I'm going to read, not all the poems I'm going to read are sort of Michigan focused, but they're all written in Michigan. And the first poem is definitely a Michigan poem. If you're from Michigan, you'll recognize the first image right away. This poem is called Rock, Paper, Scissors, Toast. Doesn't take long to get used to pointing at the palm to indicate where we live now. We like to brag about the produce. We take credit for the lakes. We are surprised when we realize our children will think of this as home. Lack of loyalty is the privilege of the new arrival. This has less to do with any particular state, more to do with the length of time it takes to write everything down. Our grandparents die, keep dying until they are gone. At the funerals, we blend in, say little, compare shoes with the deceased, play ridiculous games with precocious nieces, cousins somehow removed. Toast always loses. Then why would anyone choose toast? Just in case. This poem is called Yes and. If I say everything is a gun, you have to say yes, and the gun is always going off. If I say someone could get hurt, you have to say yes, and that's what it means to be alive. I say, does it have to be like that? You say yes, and if you had a dime for every broken heart in your wake, you could be elected president. I say, but, and you interrupt, no arguing. Someone really could get hurt. Why, just today, some guy shot his wife. Yes, and he killed a kid too, although that might have been accidental. I say nothing. You say yes, and let's start again. This is America. Everything is a gun. American Prayer. Some parents on Facebook this morning are wondering whether it's truly PJ Day at the elementary school. Trust but verify and all that, which is something a president once said about international diplomacy, or maybe the motto of a newspaper, I forget. But if your mother says she loves you, check it out, right? What happens if our children wind up alone in their Hogwarts robes, their Stegosaurus fleeces and sloth slippers, classmates clad in the usual jeans, t-shirts, sweaters, and soccer jerseys, track pants, and armor-plated backpacks? Perhaps a valuable lesson in how we are ultimately on our own, in the limits of what we can prepare for, in how we know when things have gone disastrously awry. We have children and hope for the best, my God, but that's not always what we get. Let them wear pajamas, someone's father posts. What's the worst? Though he doesn't mean it. We know the answer. Spring is weeks away, but it's cold, and the sidewalks are winter slick, half melted, refrozen, dangerous. Bundle up, we beg, and our children tumble into the sky of a new day, ceramic, shatterproof, and dressed for dreaming. We were all Odysseus in those days. A young man learns to shoot and dies in the mud, an ocean away from home, a rifle in his fingers and the sky dripping from his heart. Next to him, a friend watches his final breath slip ragged into the ditch, a thing the friend will carry back to America. Wound, souvenir, backstory. He'll teach literature to young people for 40 years. He'll coach his daughter's softball teams, root for Red Wings and Lions and Tigers, dance well, love generously. He'll be quick with a joke and firm with handshakes. He'll rarely talk about the war. If asked, he'll tell you instead his favorite story, Odysseus escaping from the Cyclops with a bad pun and good wine and a sharp stick. It's about buying time and making do, he'll say. It's about doing what it takes to get home. And you see, he has been talking about the war all along. We all want the same thing from this world. Call me nobody. Let me live. This is the boy who believed in the girl who did not believe in God. They're supposed to be learning something about Emily Dickinson and the Yellow Rose of Texas, but no one's sure why it matters. The girl is drawing a butterfly on the soft skin of the inside of the boy's forearm with a blue ballpoint bic. His mistake is thinking skin is the word that matters. His mistake is thinking ink, thinking heartbeat and fingertip. The average lifespan for most species of butterfly is a month, and the girl knows better than to ask for an exception. She knows the season will outlast this restlessness she feels. She knows the boy's desire should not be confused with her own. The lesson is about rhythm, is about faith. Prayer for what I do not want. I do not want to write a poem about a tyrant. A tyrant is not a poem, is not a form of a poem, is not syllable count or metric pattern, is not a swarm of bees wearing a poem suit, is not one wolf standing on the shoulders of another wolf wearing a trench coat and pretending to be a poem. I do not want to write a poem about men in suits, or wolves in suits, or sheep in cargo shorts. I do not want to write poems about videos of men in suits shooting children or other men. I do not want to write poems about suits of body armor or tear gas. I do not want my poems to be tear gas. I do not want to be tear gassed. I do not want to tear up the documents of our nation's history, declarations and proclamations and constant whatnots. A nation is not a poem, but each poem is a nation. I believe in words and the opposite of words. I was taught to believe what I was told. I was told to believe in words delivered by mailmen and pastors and presidents. I was told to believe in the power of the simple sentence delivered with passion and honor by a man in a suit, or a man standing on the shoulders of other men wearing a bloody suit of flesh and pretending to be a poem. This is the last one I'll read. It's called Driving Home After Thanksgiving. We learned that Ariana Grande has been named Artist of the Year. Dark when we depart, dark when we arrive. In between, we listen to pop music, complain about the never-endingness of Indiana, pretend we are not bored of our own company. This is the nature of time, every moment of life a metaphor for all the others. Ariana Grande played Kat in that show the kids used to watch, played the same character in a second show, this new incarnation peacocking up the most attention hungry traits of the original. The arc of the self bends toward caricature. She also sings a little less conversation, a little more touch my body, a Nobel worthy sentiment for sure, and I'm only mostly kidding. I can't say aloud how these lyrics rumple my blood because my kids are here and they have no idea how much I think about desire, how much I desire. I offer instead a half assed diatribe on material girl and self determination, the passage of time, and the corporatization of music. My thesis and all my supporting evidence are things I assume or do not quite remember. My wife is rolling her eyes. My kids have tuned out. I am alone. I have been driving so long, my body will feel in motion days from now. One day, Ariana Grande will play a concert where a bomb goes off and people die. Ariana Grande will reveal herself as a kind and sympathetic human in the aftermath. We do not know any of this yet, though we should probably see it coming. We are quiet for miles. Green signs count down our remaining journey. Out of nowhere, my daughter asks, what would happen if someone built a city but forgot to make roads to connect it to anywhere else? People would eventually find it, I say, which is sort of an answer, sort of a prayer. Thank you. Thank you so much for letting me read these poems.
Man, Amorak, I knew this would be good. I read a decent chunk of your poems, but wow, like you read some new ones there, I think.
Yeah, some of those are new ones. They'll be in the forthcoming book, which will be out next May.
Okay, well that was actually, you get two questions, and that was actually one of them, so you got a head start on me there. Thank you very much. That was outstanding.
Yeah, thank you.
Those are very powerful. So regular viewers know that we do the 2-question interview, the quick interview here. And I don't think I remember to tell you this on email. The first question is kind of your usual legitimate literary question. The second one traditionally is very much not. So okay. Your traditional literary question is kind of 2 parts, I guess. It's just books in general. You've got a new book coming out next year. Mm-hmm. But I remember also seeing someplace, you did a link on Twitter, the story of your first book is also kind of fascinating. So just tell me about getting your poetry books into the world in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible. It's such a painful process with so much rejection and so many obstacles, and it's really hard. And like when I tell my story, I mean, I had my first manuscript, which came out of my MFA thesis. I submitted maybe 20 times, but luckily I was writing enough poems to realize it quickly that was not going to be a book, and it was fine. I didn't want that to be a book. And then my second manuscript, I submitted almost 60 times over the course of a couple years to no avail, and I set that one aside. And then I had another one that finally got taken after years of trying. And when I tell the story, it sounds like it's a lesson in perseverance, but I think it's also a lesson in just luck. Like you have to write the poems, you have to do the work, you have to submit them a bunch of times and get used to rejection, but you also have to get lucky. I mean, I feel like there was no difference between the one that landed and the one before it that got rejected. Like the submission before it, like it just hit the right editor on the right day. Yeah. And so you have to write the poem and do good work, but there's a lot of people writing poems and doing good work. And I know a few years ago, Milkweed, which is a great poetry press, announced they were going to open for free submissions on the first of the month, and they were going to be open until they got 500, and they closed on the 4th, something like that. I mean, it's crazy. And so that like maybe not all of those manuscripts are publishable, but that's a lot of people with a book of poems just waiting for this opportunity. And so you definitely have to be lucky. Yeah, I've lots of rejections. Unfortunately, the poetry book submission process often requires entry fees. So I spent more money than I would like to admit on getting these poems published. But yeah, I've been lucky that the presses that I've landed with, my first two books, my first book was with Sundress. My second book was with Cloudbank Books. My third, and then my forthcoming fourth book will be with Sundress again. Really lucky to have landed with good editors and good people who take good care of the poems.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, Sundress puts out a lot of great stuff. So that's a great ending to the long, arduous route, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I in a previous lifetime, ages ago, I was a drummer in a rock band in East Lansing, kind of at like on the coattails of the Verve Pipe. For old folks watching this show, there was like a famous band out of East Lansing. And this is like, the mid 90s. And they were like, to your point, like the luck, like there were bands that were some of the best bands I've ever seen. I still go to shows now, and they're not this year, but no,
right.
Pre-pandemic. And some of the best bands I ever saw were these guys that nobody had ever seen before, just because like the right talent scout hadn't rolled through on the coattails of the Verve Pipe yet. And,
right.
The lucky 300 of us saw them, there's with art in general, I guess is my point. Like, yeah, I'm glad. Thank you for sharing that story. Because there is so much, like you can do killer work and it's still just up to the whims of fate, so to speak.
For sure.
Very cool. All right. And then question 2. I've also noticed on Twitter that you're a Dodgers fan.
I am.
And I am a Michigander. So I grew up loving the Tigers, of course. But my first baseball love was the 1981 Dodgers. That's the first year that I can remember like staying up super late at that age to watch the World Series and Fernando Valenzuela's wind up and the whole 9 yards. So my slightly goofier question to you then is top 1, 2, we can go as deep as 3 because there's too many to limit. So your favorite 1980s Dodgers?
Oh man. Well, so the answer has changed over the years because at the time I would have told you it was Steve Garvey. And then I found out that he's maybe not the best guy.
Questionable morals.
And so that was one of it was literally my first lesson in sort of a hero disappointing me as a kid, because I loved him. I was a first baseman. That's the position I always played growing up. My Fernando for sure. I loved that season. That 1981 team was so much fun, and there was the strike that year, and I had forgotten about the strike. All I remembered was the Dodgers and they're winning. And my second choice would be, I think it would have to be Gibson, the 88 team and the home run. And there was an ESPN special about that World Series a few months ago. Early in the pandemic, they had a special on, and when it came on and they showed the home run, and I did the fist pump because rounding second base. And my wife was like, "You knew when he was going to?" Yes, I know when he's going to do that. Of course I know he's going to do that. It's like ingrained in my mind. And then probably Davey Lopes after that. Yeah. I'm a big fan of Davey Lopes. I loved him. Loved the mustache.
Yeah, he was a good one.
He might have been 70s. I mean, he may have just trickled into that 80 team. I think Steve Sachs might have taken his place by that 81 team.
I think Sachs was either like rookie or second year, maybe. So he was definitely getting more time, but Lopes was like the wily veteran in the dugout.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
As I recall, I mean, I was 8. So I mean, I could
I was 11 that year. So
but that was the 80s were different, right? Like I was 8, but then I studied it via baseball cards for the next like 6 years or whatever.
Exactly.
Times change. Now they would just watch ESPN, but back then you had to study things,
Well, right, because it was except for the World Series, there was one game on a week on Saturday afternoons.
Yeah. And this week in baseball.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's where you
tried to tell people about it. I've actually Googled, because like I have young kids myself, and they can't usually stay up to watch a World Series and stuff. So I'm like, is there anything that's even remotely the same as this week in baseball? And the answer is basically no, which is kind of heartbreaking.
Right. Yeah, it's great. You get the alert on your phone. You can watch the highlight 10 seconds later.
Yeah, but it's one highlight. It's not like anyway, we could. This is supposed to be about poetry, not baseball.
That's good. That's all right. There's poetry and baseball go together.
They do. All too well, I think sometimes. All right. Well, Amorak, thank you very much for taking the time to join us tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun and cool. I didn't know I was going to get to talk about the Dodgers.
But I usually remember to tell people that there will be a goofy question, but I never tell them what it is. And I didn't even warn you there was going to be a goofy question at all. So it's total surprise.
Yeah, that works. That's great.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks again for joining us, and viewers, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks.